AgriTalk is brought to you by the next generation of weed control, Liberty Ultra Herbicide from BASF. Learn more about the best Liberty yet at liberty-ultra.us.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliates, or sponsors.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. Glad that you're joining us on this Monday morning. I'm your host, Chip Flory, and joining us right now is Richard Gupton. He is the Senior VP for Public Policy and Counsel at the Agricultural Retailers Association. Richard, it's great to talk to you again. How are you?
Doing well. Great to be with you again.
Yeah. Well, I'll bet you're glad that you were traveling a couple of weeks ago out east and not this week.
That's right. Yeah, this week has been tough. I've got a youngest daughter that was fortunately able to get back to college yesterday. So yes, it's not good to travel nowadays.
No, it is crazy out there, no doubt. So the travel for the ARA here a couple of weeks ago at the start of the month was for the flying into Washington, D.C. to talk with lawmakers out there. I'd like to start there if we could, Richard. What were the priorities that you really focused on?
Sure. Yeah, we had 120 members or more than 120 members and visited over 130 congressional offices from both parties. And they delivered kind of direct real world insight. This is putting a face on the constituents for their senators and members of Congress and their legislative staff on what's happening with the fertilizer supply issues, pesticide related issues. As we talked about MAHA, transportation challenges, whether that's shortage of drivers with commercial driver's license issues or issues dealing with rail, energy issues like E15, and really all the uncertainty, including regulatory uncertainty, or in the trade front, impacting not only our retail members but their farmer customers.
Yeah. On one hand, when it comes to regulatory issues, Richard, I see what's happening on the trade side, and that's one thing. But I look over at EPA and I see some deregulation happening over there. It's tough to keep track of right now, isn't it?
It is. And so we're very appreciative of the Trump administration as they look at outdated regulations that really increase costs and burdens on the agricultural industry. You mentioned EPA. Administrator Zeldin is looking to make reforms on the registration process, for example, for pesticide products. Usually it takes over a decade and hundreds of millions of dollars to get a product approved. These newer technologies that are kind of waiting there for the industry to utilize. He's trying to reform that. And that's just one example. The risk management program, which regulates anhydrous ammonia, is another one to make it I say common sense regulations. We want to make sure we're protecting the health, safety of the community, but the regulations have to make sense, and they have to be cost effective as well. Otherwise, you're going to put a lot of ag retailers and farmers out of business.
Yep, that's right. Richard, did you get a sense from the lawmakers, and especially those? Well, no, I'm not going to say especially those from farm states. Did you get a sense from lawmakers about their optimism for the farm bill and getting the skinny bill done?
Yeah, well, we were actually there. Our fly-in, the meetings were taking place the same day that the House Agriculture Committee was voting on the farm bill, what they call a markup out of committee. So, it was an exciting day for our members to be engaged with, because we met with a lot of members that are actually on the Ag Committee themselves, trying to do outreach efforts with members of Congress that are House members that aren't on the Ag Committee, because the next step has got to take place on the House floor, and you need to get a majority to get that done. But you had 7 Democrats that voted in the committee for this farm bill. That's 3 more than the last time they had a vote in 2024. So we're optimistic, but it's going to take, again, engagement from ag retailers, farmers, and everybody within the ag community to relay the importance of getting this done. It's a tight margins on the House and in the Senate, but we're optimistic if we have a unified voice and motivated industry that we can try to get this done because it's needed. Again, we talked about uncertainty. They need to get this done to provide some certainty for our industry. And the farm bill's already delayed several years. And
Yeah.
really, it's kind of inexcusable, I guess you could say, for them not to get
Yeah.
this done and get a multi-year bill done. And the good thing is, in the
Yeah.
one big beautiful bill last year, I will say they did get some things addressed on, like for example, crop insurance and the commodity
Yep.
title, but more work still needs to be done. And Chairman Thompson of the House Ag Committee recognizes that.
Yeah. And that's where your focus is primarily, isn't it, Richard, on the crop insurance and the safety nets?
That's right. Crop insurance safety nets, the conservation programs, our members work with growers on multiple programs. We actually got engaged too because of all the uncertainty on the credit side of things and financial side of things, and
Okay.
making sure they're shoring up the credit
Sure.
title of the farm bill as well. So that all of those things are important. It's a multi-legged stool, as you'd say, when you're looking at this legislation, and those are all important parts of the farm bill.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Let's talk about the letter that ARA sent to the president about fertilizer and pricing. And I love the approach that you guys at ARA took here, Richard, because you laid it out and said, listen, here's some things that we can do that are going to help in the short term, but long term, there needs to be a focus on some of the issues that can be addressed to bring some longer term relief too. Tell me about the letter, the motivation for it. Why'd you do it?
We obviously, there's a lot of geopolitical disruptions going on right now. You've got the Iran conflict that's impacting the Strait of Hormuz, and a significant, people probably don't realize a significant amount of fertilizer, for example, including sulfur too, travel through that strait with a lot of production from countries like Saudi or Arabia. And so it's a global marketplace, and that impacts the availability and pricing of fertilizer. That in fuel, if you're looking at the instability of the fuel prices as it's going up and down, and the transportation markets, for example, these cargo containers that we saw during COVID, they had these surcharges and excessive charges during that time, and that's something that needs to be looked at as well. So this letter provided short-term solutions about, making sure there's a stable supply chain in those areas of the country, but also the longer term. How do we make onshore more production, have a more stable, competitive transportation system, energy supply, and the like. And some of those things the administration is trying to address, but we want to be heavily engaged to make sure that all of these things are looked at and the impact of agriculture because it is a kind of a volatile, uncertain time right now.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly is. Uh, and let's talk about some of the longer term policies that you would like the administration to consider to bring some relief to the fertilizer. And there's a lot of growers out there, Richard. Didn't you know that want to take a look at some of the countervailing duties on Moroccan imports, for example, and maybe get some relief there. Is that would that bring significant relief?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't specify specific products or countervailing
Right.
duties. Our letter just wanted, given everything going on with tariffs and trade, we just wanted I don't know if you call it a reset, but just have the administration look at all of these things holistically, particularly when there's a shortage of product. If there's a known shortage of specific fertilizer products, then they need to take action to provide short-term relief and also have policies that incentivize long-term solutions, whether that's more onshoring of product, increasing domestic production where possible, doing regulatory relief on the permitting, for example. And you saw, at least not on the fertilizer side, but on the energy side, they used the Defense Production Act to restart oil production off the California coast. So all of those things need to be looked at, including relief to make sure we have enough drivers and a rail system to be able to move product in a timely way. So we just want to be engaged and make sure they're looking at things not just in the short term, but the long term, because they're part of their national security plan dealing with the farm and the ag community wants to look at supply chains and making sure those are strengthened. And so this letter kind of just reinforces and emphasizes areas where the administration can take action to the benefit of American agriculture. Make sure we can continue to produce abundant, affordable food and be competitive on a global stage.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Hey, I'll tell you, Richard, every time I see something that's talking about long-term policies, long-term priorities, I always look for this one, and I was really glad to see it in there. Modernizing the ports, inland waterways, rail networks, rural highways to improve the reliability, efficiency, and resiliency of agricultural input transportation. We cannot lose track of the infrastructure that we've got. The Mississippi can be such a great advantage for U.S. agriculture as long as we maintain it. But boy, we got to do some work to maintain that thing, Richard.
That's right. And the two major pieces of legislation that Congress needs to reauthorize this year is the what's called the Water Resources Development Act that authorizes a program for these investments in the inland waterways and the ports. I know you mentioned the Mississippi River because of um, low water levels, for example, that's impacted barge travel. So making sure that they have the permitting reform by the Army Corps of Engineer, allowing projects to move forward to make sure these systems remain viable to move product in a cost-efficient way is going to be important. The other legislation that needs to be authorized is called the Surface Transportation Program Reauthorization, and that reauthorizes highway bill investments, bridges, everything dealing with the transportation system that's funded by the Highway Trust Fund. So we're working with members of Congress to make sure both get done and are long-term investments to make sure we have a competitive transportation system for not only America's agriculture system, but for rural communities.
Real good. Thank you, Richard. Hey, that is Richard Gupton, Senior Vice President for Public Policy and Counsel at ARA. We're talking weather next.